you all again. A few quick housekeeping things before we get, or actually, we'll go ahead and approve the minutes, then do some housekeeping things. Hopefully, everyone has had an opportunity to take a look at the minutes from the December meeting. Does anyone have any edits or additions to those? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written. Okay, may I have a second, please? Second. All in favor of accepting, please raise your hands. All right, minutes accepted, thank you. All right, a couple of housekeeping things. So between our last meeting and today, we did receive a resignation letter from Jose Vicente. Mr. Vicente did believe he had too many things going on that kept him from being able to participate as fully with the board as he would have liked. So he did tender his resignation. That puts us back to 3 vacancies on the board. So we will be following up with both the mayor's office just to see kind of what the status is on the other pending applications we've had. In the interim, I would encourage community members who are Columbus residents to please apply. We would love to have the input of some additional folks on our board and to be a full board again. So applications are available online, and I believe you can go to the IG's website to see a link for the applications. If that's wrong, let me know, but I do think that that is a place you can get them online. All right, in light of kind of our truncated down roster, I wanted to make a couple of announcements of committee changes that we will just have in place for the time being until we are back to a fuller board, just to alleviate some of the burden on all of our subcommittees. First, we will have committees kind of restructuring. So once we're back to full, Mary Younger and Dr. Ford, you will still be Committee 3, but for now we're going to have you combined with Mr. Anderson and Ms. Jackson to form one combined committee. Ms. Jackson, you will head that, be the chair of that committee. And then we're going to have Board Member Strickland join Pastor Rich and Vice Chair Jones to be Committee 1. We will just meet with those 2 committees until we have 3 additional board members so that we can go back to having subcommittees of 3 each, or at least 3 each, and aren't kind of constantly falling behind because we've only got committees made up of 2 people. Okay? Once we're back to full, we will then separate back out with Board Member Younger and Dr. Ford plus 1 new member being Committee 3, Ms. Jackson, Mr. Anderson plus 1 new member being Committee 2, and we will likely keep Board Member Strickland with Pastor Rich and Dr. Jones. All right? Okay, you'll see that cases have been split along those lines, so that way each group has half of each case instead of splitting into 3. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to the Inspector General for any updates from the office.
Thank you so much, Chair Burns. First of all, I just want to say Happy New Year's to everyone. Hope everyone had a great holiday. If you see before you, there's a summary of complaints and investigation data. This will conclude for 2024. Of course, we'll be working on our annual report, and that will be presented. Our goal is to present that to the board members in March. But just briefly, just kind of want to go over some things just to kind of you should be able to see in front of you. So for 2024, the total number of complaints that we received was 1,741 complaints. That includes 88 complaints that we received the month of December. The total number of complaints that were closed was 1,469, with 64 being for the month of December. There were 12 pending at the end of the year, and there are 20 that are on administrative hold. The total number of investigations open in 2024 were 269. For the month of December, there were 21 that's included. And for the total number of investigations that was completed in 2024 was 246, including 2022 that was completed in the month of December. Active investigations we have going on right now are 46. With that said, if you turn over to the next page, you'll see that the total number of investigations reviewed by the Civilian Review Board in 2024 were 241. Of course, we know that that does include any cases from 2023, and that would also include, I think, one or two cases that were 2022 that might have been on hold. Investigations under board review by the end of the year were 54 investigations that were under review for the board. Also, if you look, there's another spreadsheet. Before I go to the other spreadsheet, are there any questions that anyone has regarding this? Okay, so moving forward, if you see there's a spreadsheet that talks about in 2024, investigation allegations with dispositions. So this was something that at the last board meeting was requested, I believe, by Board Member Strickland, that we provide. And as you can see, if you look at the cases, some of these cases are 2023. And just because it has a 2023 date, these would be cases that were reviewed and closed in the year of 2024. So we did prepare this, and right now it just kind of focused on cases where the IG had a finding of sustained, and some of those findings were either the chain of command reviewed and agreed or disagreed. Now, once we do our annual report, we're going to put more in there, but it's a lot to kind of go through and just kind of put all that information in there. So we did want to provide this for you. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask that. I know you're just getting that now. So if there's any questions that you have later on that you want, yeah, go right ahead, sir.
Yes. I wonder if it would be possible to have an explanation for the chain of command's disagreement with the board beyond we find that it's unfounded and that's it.
So what we can do is, if you go all the way over to the last comments where it says COC comments, those come from once the investigations are done and they go over to the chain of command, and the chain of command sends their findings back over to us. When they disagree, they will put an explanation on there. If there is no explanation there, the chain of command did not provide one, we can definitely reach back out and find out what that is, but I think it might be.
For example, I'm sorry, but like 2024-0405, where we disagreed with the DIG's finding, this was a case that we felt pretty strongly about, where there was posting that seemed to have a racist connotation to us. We see that, so we disagreed with the DIG's finding. In any case, the chain of command found, concluded that the allegation was unfounded. Yeah.
So what we can do is, in cases like this, is I will say, let me pull, we can look at the report that we got back. If there's nothing there that the board, the chain of command just did not provide any explanation as to why. But what we can do is reach out to the chain of command and ask them. Yeah, we definitely can do that to say, hey, you know, this is what it is, you know, the board disagreed with our finding. Can you please, if you did not agree with the board, can you please provide us with an explanation? Not a problem. We definitely can kind of reach out and get that information.
Yeah, it'd be great to know what their thinking is on, and especially this is yeah, that was a particular case of importance to us where we were seeing posts by an officer that we found to be unbecoming.
Absolutely.
And just would like to know, did they not find them unbecoming? Did they think that, or do they have a private versus public posture? Like, what's the reasoning?
Absolutely. I will definitely reach out to them. One of the things I know that, our goal is going forward in 2024 is when we're meeting with CPD, because we try to do quarterly meetings, is we want to have that discussion with them when they disagree. Because we like to know too. I mean, I think it's a learning for us if they're seeing, because normally our findings are whether or not we feel that there was a policy violation. And so if CPD is saying, no, they didn't see that, we definitely want to understand. And that's something that we can always request too, that CPD appear before the board and maybe even give you an explanation. But definitely, I will, what I'm going to do is mark this one. What I would also ask is if there's any other board member that is looking and saying, hey, we want some more explanation, please feel free to send your email to Stephanie, and then that way she'll forward that on to us. And so when we do a letter to the chief, we can ask for more explanation as to why there was a difference in the concurrence of the finding.
Any other questions for the Inspector General? No? All right, thank you. I'd like to go a little bit out of order. Since we don't have Board Member Strickland here, I will read out Committee 2's cases, but I'll let the rest of you go first. And then I'll go through both the cases from December that weren't read out, and then the ones that were supposed to be for this month as well. Yes.
If I could, I'd like to introduce someone from our audience.
Sure.
Mr. Rich Kurtner is in the audience. He is the chair of the Justice Committee for the Alaska Black Caucus. And earlier in the day, he met with the Inspector General to go over everything that, all the facets of her office, and now he's meeting with the Civilian Review Board here, and he comes from Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska, and they're looking to maybe install a Civilian Police Review Board, and he's, and from what we've heard, he's very impressed with what the Inspector General has done with that office so far. So it's Mr. Rich Kerner. And by the way, he used to be a supervisor with the Franklin County Public Defender's Office many years ago, and then he was the head of the Federal Public Defender's Office in Alaska, in Anchorage, Alaska.
And you left sunny Ohio for Anchorage. Very nice to have you join us. All right, I will turn that over to Board Member Nathan now for Subcommittee 1's reports.
Weren't you going out of order and doing the reading of,
I'm going to do his at the end.
at the end?
He's technically supposed to go now.
There we go. That's what I,
Sorry.
okay, that's the out of order. I thought you meant the out of order that you're going to do it instead of him. No worries. Okay. Let me make sure these are in order. I think they are. This is case 2024-1088. Complainant was stopped for a window tint violation. In the course of the stop, he was also cited for driving without a license, a stop sign violation, and failure to wear a seatbelt. Got out of his vehicle. The complainant alleged that he was wearing a seatbelt. The DIG found that it's not that they are not the appropriate agency to handle this particular dispute. And so because this was a traffic violation issue, that this would be handled by the Franklin County Municipal Court Traffic Violation Bureau, not by the DIG. As a result, they found that the allegation of misconduct was unfounded. We agree. This is case 2024-1190. Complainant alleged that a CPD officer was driving recklessly by driving the wrong way on a one-way street. The DIG found that due to a citywide event, multiple streets were closed near the police substation where the officer drove. The officer could not remember the event, and the GPS vehicle activity report shows his car in the area, but the DIG couldn't determine the direction of the driving without more evidence. As a result, the allegation of misconduct was closed with a finding of unfounded by the DIG. We agree. This is a case, 2024-1306. Complainant had his RV parked in an apartment parking lot. The CPD responded to the apartment's leasing officer's allegation of trespassing by the complainant. When the officers arrived, they got into a back and forth with the complainant, who was resistant to giving the officers his name. He also was aggressive and agitated, referring to the officers using the N-word, although both officers were white. He also used the F-word at them multiple times. He then stated, "I wish you wouldn't effing touch me, because if you do, I'll file an effing lawsuit." The comment elicited a response by the officer, "You don't want me to touch you because you're going to end up in the hospital if I do." While the officer tried to explain to the DIG that he didn't intend his comment to be threatening, the DIG did find it violated CPD policy, that it lacked professionalism, and so sustained a finding of misconduct in this case, and we agreed with the DIG's finding because of the officer's comment or response to this really provocative behavior by the complainant. So we agreed. This is case 2024-1316. The complainant alleged that the officers viewed a video of a domestic violent incident, did nothing about it. The BWC footage reviewed for the incident showed the officers were shown a verbal argument, but it didn't involve any physical violence to either party, so it's recommended that the allegation of a failure to respond to the domestic violence was unfounded. Complainant also alleged that the daughter asked for a police report, and the officers indicated they wouldn't be taking a report. Again, the investigation found the officers weren't required to file a report for domestic dispute with no injuries. So in this case, the allegation against the officers for misconduct was also closed as exonerated. And finally, the complainant alleged the officer allowed her daughter's boyfriend to take her daughter's phone and keep it. The investigation found the officer advised the complainant and her daughter that the cell phone was shared property, and attempted to explain what that meant, but was cut off by the complainant and her daughter before he could explain. At no point did the officer allow the complainant's daughter's boyfriend to take the daughter's phone and keep it. And so the DIG found, with respect to allegation 3, against the officers, that this be closed as unfounded. We agreed with the DIG's finding. This is a case in which 2024-1434, complainant filed a complaint against CPD officers that they failed to take a complaint on a hit skip that was reported on January 13th, 2024. The officers said that they tried to file the complaint report on July 19th, 2024, but couldn't complete it because, as some of us would remember, there was a citywide system network outage that began July 18th, 2024. The officers admitted that it then slipped their minds until they received the DIG notice that an investigation was opened due to the complaint. The officers spoke with the complainant and apologized to the complainant. At that point, the complainant wanted to drop the complaint and accepted the officer's apology. But DIG found a violation of CPD policy for failing to file a timely report. As a result of that, the DIG sustained the allegation of failing to file a timely report. We, in this case, disagree with the DIG's finding. It was the subcommittee's conclusion that if a complainant wants to drop a complaint, that we ought to let them drop it, and that the public are not served by carrying forth a complaint to to continuing in a complaint that the complainant doesn't want to pursue. And we view this as different than, say, a domestic violence complaint where it doesn't matter if the victim doesn't want to follow through because of public interest in punishing a domestic violence, a domestic offender. We saw this as different. These are administrative issues, not criminal proceedings, and we thought that the public doesn't have an interest in continuing an administrative proceeding that the complainant doesn't want to pursue. So we disagreed with the DIG finding, although we understood why DIG found the way it did. So, don't know if you want to respond or if there's a need to respond or.
We'll ask, are there any questions from other board members?
So there is a policy dispute here, as you understand, that we're just saying if a complainant wants to drop a matter, they ought to be allowed to drop a matter, if they've accepted an officer's apology. And I can imagine this in lots of situations where an officer perhaps used offensive language or did something else. What's that?
I'm just listening
Oh.
until you're done
No,
talking.
Let me respond.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I can
So-
tag on to the end there.
Thank you. So I did get the question from the board and definitely appreciate the feedback. And the board has the ability and the, authority that if there's a finding that we make and you disagree, you can do that. The thing of it is that with our office, the reason the finding was what it is and how when we get information regarding an allegation, it is our duty to investigate the allegation. Now, a citizen has the ability to request that it's withdrawn, and we do put that in the report. However, when they request to withdraw, if they have given us information where we are able to have enough information that shows that a violation of policy occurred, then that's what our finding will always be, is that the policy was violated. Now, whether or not CPD takes disciplinary actions or whether or not the board wants to recommend that although the actions taken by the officer may have violated a policy, but there is no recommendation for disciplinary action, it definitely can be that.
We understood your response. Our response to that was, is there something in the governing statute or regs that requires you to take the posture that you're taking?
Well, the policy is that when you find misconduct and that is brought to our attention,
No,
so that would be our
I
policy.
understand that that's your policy. I'm asking, is that governed by a city ordinance or the authorizing statute for your office so that you must do this? Or is this an internal policy by DIG that you're going to do it. In other words, could you come up with a different policy and still be in compliance with our local ordinance by saying, no, once a complainant withdraws their complaint, we are going to allow that complainant to withdraw the complaint.
I think it might be the other way around. So Rob's going to look up the charter statute. The Department of Inspector General has two options. One, they can receive community complaints or citizen complaints for misconduct. The other is that the IG still has the ability to move forward with its own allegation of misconduct. So if it has found that misconduct has occurred, the IG can say, we believe misconduct has occurred.
Absolutely.
And so regardless of a citizen complaint, we can still move forward.
Completely
And I
agree.
think that is the posture that the IG's office has taken in this particular case. It is okay that the citizen has withdrawn their complaint, but if the IG determines that they would like to still move forward with an investigation of that complaint under its own allegation, the IG can do that.
That's different than what we're saying.
Yeah. I'll add my 3 cents. I hear what you're saying. I think the short answer is there's nothing that absolutely in statute or in the
Right.
charter requires the IG to conduct the investigation. But the IG is a separate department and has the ability to form its own policy that you can't dictate to them. That's their policy. You can express a preference if you like, but ultimately, the way they run their department, they can create that policy. But from a public perspective, so the analogy I would give is when I was a prosecutor, domestic violence complaints, the victim calls the police come out, police charge
Exactly.
the offender, and then 3 weeks later, the victim wants it dismissed. Those charges are picked up by the state of Ohio, and the victim's.
And we're distinguishing.
Right.
That's how I led in, that
Right.
we're distinguishing that kind of situation with domestic violence. That was how I led into this
Right.
conversation.
Right.
The public has an interest in pursuing domestic violence complaints, whether or not the victim wants to prosecute it. The public has an interest. Our board is set up to protect public interest.
Right.
Regardless of whether the
Right.
complainant wants to go forward or not.
Absolutely.
What we're saying is, because this is, administrative proceedings, and in this case, the complainant themselves are saying that they don't want to go forward, there isn't a public interest. If an officer, say, apologizes
I would
for-
disagree with that
Yeah.
notion.
I
There is a
think you wanna
public,
be-
there still is a public interest.
I think you
even
want to
if-
be careful as a board to make outright determinations about what the public has an interest in versus not. I think the statute anticipates that there will be situations where
Right.
you as a board want to initiate, right, an allegation, where the IG as a department wants to initiate an allegation, whether or not there is a citizen complaint, because you as a board are made up of members of the public.
And you believe it serves
And
the
you
greater
believe a
good.
certain circumstance deserves that.
Yeah.
And I think administrative investigations versus a criminal investigation have a different balancing, factors in weighing it. But I don't know that just because it's an administrative investigation it has less of a public interest than a criminal investigation would.
I hear what you're saying, and I would see to the degree that we wouldn't want a blanket policy. In this instance, where there was simply a failure to file a report when the system was shut down, and the complainant believes they were not injured, it's difficult to find the public interest. At least what I would be advocating for is what you guys seem to be doing is taking a blanket approach and saying, once the complaint is filed and we investigate and we find a violation, regardless of whether the complaint, regardless of our subjective determination of public interest, we are going to move forward. That is our policy. What we're trying to get at as a subcommittee is a more subjective test of saying, do you believe that the public interest is being served here? So,
So I might want to interject, because I have a concern no one's raised yet, at least here in this space, is let's kick this a few years down the road. We have another situation where a complaint is filed, officer calls the person, we don't know the content of that phone call, but thereafter, and that content could include threats, it could include, promises to dismiss a charge if you withdraw the complaint, and then we set a standard. And the person then calls and says, I want to withdraw my complaint. And there's officer misbehavior or violation, and simply because it's withdrawn, and let's say it's not DV, let's say it's some other innocuous thing, but the content of the conversation between the officer and the complainant contains things that none of us would want to not be, right, addressed. Like, that makes me a little nervous, is how subjective
And to,
we might be, could end up
yeah.
incentivizing
Yeah.
apologies that either aren't genuine or things worse than apologies and complaints being withdrawn.
and on the other side, we want to incentivize, I mean, this board was set up to bring about a healing between the community and police in part because of some of the, police shootings and well-publicized incidents that we need something outside of the chain of command to have civilians review, police conduct. Where a police officer steps forward, so we've got the worst case scenario, but the best case scenario is we're disincentivizing apologies. And we're disincentivizing private healing. What we're saying is, it doesn't matter what you do to bring correction. I obviously feel strongly about this because I think that our role is to bring about healing and reconciliation in the community. This case brings it to the surface for us that what we're saying is, well, that was a nice try, but we're going to move forward anyway.
I agree with your general sentiment, but you're a legal entity, the Civilian Police Review Board, and so, at least the way I counsel all my clients, including the board, is, you're trying to remove as much subjectivity out of the analysis as possible and be objective, because the goal is to treat everybody the same. The slippery slope here is that if you get another complaint a month from now where the complainant says, I want it dismissed, but the circumstances are a lot different and you don't necessarily agree with a dismissal, then you get into the game of subjectivity. Like, why is one complainant's request to close the complaint better or more deserving of closing it than another complainant's? And unless you have to apply it, if you make an exception, you have to make an exception consistently over time. And it becomes dangerous from a legal analysis. Your point's well taken, though. And, it's going back to the DV analogy, oftentimes we would say, we made sure on the record, we said, the victim wants this case to be closed.
Yeah.
But the state is moving forward because
We see that as an offense against the public and not just an offense against a victim.
Well,
This is different.
I would say it's not different. I would say this is an offense against the public as a whole in terms of, as you said, trust and faith and confidence in the police generally. And so there's, to your point, though, about reconciliation, that apology from the officer to the complainant, you could say, well, that's great and we appreciate that. I don't think it's de-incentivizing it because you say, but the board is independent, the DIG is independent, and they're doing this independently for the public greater good.
And to piggyback on that, it is a recommendation. And so if you want to make sure that that is highlighted in your recommendation to the chain of command can take that into consideration when determining what type of
We
discipline
would definitely want
is
to
issued for the
highlight
officer.
that for
Yeah.
the chain of command.
And that will allow you to continue to be more objective in your disposition of a particular allegation, and then have the department or the chain of command who is going to determine kind of what level of discipline makes sense, given that the apology was made and that the citizen then withdrew the complaint afterwards.
I just wanted to actually just piggyback on that. The purpose of all of the investigations we do is really to present all of the information to the board. And so with this, the investigation was done. And when the investigation was done and the officer made the phone call to the complainant, then the complainant was able to get the report, and they did say, hey, apologize. So we made sure that all of that information is brought to the board so they understood that. The complainant at that time probably unknowingly was like, the issue has been resolved. So for them, they're like, I just want to withdraw my complaint. The thing of it is, the investigation was really already done.
No,
I know,
we
you know what I'm saying.
completely understand.
Right. And so
Yeah.
all we were doing was just presenting the fact that, and we understood, I mean, we put everything in there about the
Yes.
report, what happened, the cyber attack, and just understanding that even though the officer apologized, and that's always commended, is that the fact of the matter still was that because of the timeline, it just was a violation. We don't make a determination as to how, when an officer violates a policy or procedure, we just report on this is what the policy
I
is.
completely understood.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Well, yeah, we would like our perspective communicated to the chain of command, and they can do what they want to do. So, great. All right. 2024-1450, the complainant alleged in a phone call to a CPD detective regarding a car accident, that the detective was extremely rude and condescending. There was a recording of the phone call that was obtained. DIG found that the detective's statements were neither rude nor condescending, didn't violate CPD policy, and therefore the allegation of misconduct was unfounded. We agreed. Case 2024-1452, complainant alleged that 4 CPD officers stopped her son's car with guns drawn, that they stopped the wrong car. The officers were responding to a shooting report in which the suspect supposedly fled in a gray Honda sedan. The complainant's son was driving a gray sedan when he was pulled over. BWC footage reveals that the stop lasted about 45 seconds. The police quickly realized that it was the wrong car. They apologized, let the complainant's son go. No guns were drawn by 2 of the officers. A third officer did pull his gun from his holster but kept it pointed to the ground. The DIG found that there were only 3 officers, not 4, and that they acted reasonably and within CPD policies. So with respect to the 2 officers who didn't draw their guns, they were, the DIG concluded that the allegation of misconduct was unfounded. With respect to the officer who did draw his gun, the DIG concluded that the charge of misconduct, that he was exonerated. We agreed with the DIG's findings. So, we have agreement with the DIG's findings in case number 1088, 1190, 1306, 1316, 1450, and 1452. So I move to accept the DIG's findings with respect to all of those cases.
Okay, may I have a second, please? All in favor of accepting those cases as presented, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Okay. Ayes have
And
it.
with respect to case 2024-1434, our subcommittee disagreed with the DIG's finding of sustained, and so I move to have that finding be unfounded, I guess. Is that how
Okay.
we would word it, or how would we word it?
So Would it be unfounded or exonerated? Because it's not that the thing didn't happen, it did happen.
Right, is it, I'm trying to decide whether it's just something as simple as saying we disagree with the finding versus making another finding, but
Right.
I don't think exonerate is, I think unfounded is probably, and maybe you could speak to that, I think unfounded is maybe more appropriate than exonerated, but
Or maybe I could, just for clarity, would but would a more appropriate motion, given the discussion, be they would have administratively closed it? Like not even reached a determination of,
this is the one with the apology, right? Yeah, I know that in the statute, you can make recommendations regarding discipline as well, so maybe for consideration would be that you agree with the DIG's findings, but the recommendation is more towards discipline, that no discipline is warranted. That's another
I
option
would
as well.
certainly move for that.
I mean, that's an option where you, because I remember a board member, Nathan, saying previously, like, we understand why you came to the decision that you came to, we just think that there's extenuating circumstances, so you could just vote to accept that finding, but just recommend no discipline as it relates to the finding. Because of circumstances, or whatever you want to phrase it. That's an option, too.
would that, do you think that would be agreeable to you and Dr. Jones?
Well, you know, I mean, I've stated our perspective that, you know, if the, you know, authorizing statute that set up the office didn't require you to move forward, that we would prefer that you exercise discretion in handling these with complaint withdrawals, as opposed to, we're going to push it up the chain of command, but that's,
I can't speak for Ms. Ross, she's counsel for the DIG, but I would, if I was counsel for DIG, I would say don't do that.
you know.
I just think that's dangerous legally to do that.
So from a Robert's Rules perspective, we already have a motion on the floor. At this point, we could either get a second for the motion that Board Member Nathan has put forward, or we can get an amendment on that motion. So I will ask, is there a second or an
Was the
amendment?
motion for unfounded, or was it for exonerated?
The motion was for exonerated.
Okay, yeah, and I would say unfounded is probably
I
better.
had unfounded.
Oh, sorry, my
Yeah,
bad.
I thought
He
had
said
unfounded.
unfounded, I typed it,
Yeah.
but yes. So the motion was for unfounded. Do we have either a second for that or an amendment by anyone? So we have neither. Okay, I will table this for now until the end of our meeting. I'd like to come back because I think that we can reach something better, only because I don't like the subjective nature of us choosing when it's okay to withdraw and not withdraw. I think that puts us, for a variety of reasons, in a kind of slippery place. But that's just where we are. So we will hold on to 2024-1434 until the end of the meeting. We'll come back around and see if anyone has thought of any kind of common places we can all get to. Board Member Younger, Committee 3.
Did we vote on the first batch?
Yes, yeah.
We did? Okay.
Okay. Case number 2024-1202. This is, there was an allegation here that the officer failed to investigate and handle a loud noise call. The investigation, the DIG's investigation consisted of review of CAD material, review of BWC footage, and all applicable CPD policies and procedures. They also reviewed patrol view data showing all calls for 4 precinct. In regard to the allegation that the officer failed to investigate and handle a loud noise call, the investigation found that the police response was within CPD policy, and this allegation was recommended that it be closed as unfounded. Our review committee met, and we found that that we agreed with the finding of the Inspector General in this case. Case number 2, 2024-1233. This was an allegation of police misconduct, and this indicated that on August 19th, 2024, the complainant was notified by an officer that her son was arrested for shooting at a person, was driving a stolen vehicle, and was placed in police custody. The complainant said that her 15-year-old son was arrested minutes after she left her home, and she does not believe that her son had time to shoot a person, steal a vehicle, since she had seen him before she left her home. The complainant alleged her son was racially profiled and arrested. The DIG's investigation consisted of interview of the complainant, of her son, interviews with the responding officer, the detective at issue, the arrest, the U-10 report, review of CAD chronological report, review of all the BWC footage, and applicable provisions. Pertaining to this allegation, the investigation found that the officer responded to a person with a gun and a motor vehicle theft while on patrol. The officer apprehended the complainant's son with helicopter assistance. The clothing description was given by a female victim. The complainant's son was approached by the officer, handcuffed and detained, and positively identified as the suspect by the victim, who was allegedly shot at. The officer was advised by the felony assault detective to transport the complainant's son to CPD headquarters to speak with the detective. And after calling and notifying the complainant of the situation, which was the mother, the officer did so. The investigation found no evidence that the complainant's son was racially profiled. Therefore, the Columbus DIGs recommends that this allegation be closed as unfounded. Our committee reviewed this, and as to the allegation that her son was racially profiled and arrested, we reviewed the interchange between the BWC footage between the detective and the teen, and the detective seemed to what he did do was use profanity. And there's another addition here. Additionally, during the investigation, it was found the detective used profanity during the interaction towards the complainant's son, and this profanity was a violation of CPD policy. And there is an allegation, and there is a recommendation that this allegation be closed with a finding of sustained. And this was a DIG allegation. But this profanity was basically the detective it sounded like he was trying to scare the young man into, the BWC footage included footage of the detective's interview, and he was telling him, if I see your name pass my effing desk, I swear to God, I'm going to make you understand life that day. He was, and he said, he also was telling him, I'm going to call your mother, I'm going to keep her abreast of the situation. It sounded like he was trying to help the young man, but he did use profanity, and that allegation was sustained by the Department of the Inspector General. Any questions on that?
On the-
We agreed with the Inspector General.
Okay.
As to the next case, 2024-1279, this was, let's see, and now the complainant alleged that the officer did not conduct a proper investigation of a Hiskip traffic crash incident. This was a review of CAD materials, BWC footage, review of applicable CPD policies, and a review of the Ohio Traffic Crash Report. In regards to, they also interviewed the complainant and an in-person interview with the officer. In regard to the allegation that the officer failed to conduct a proper traffic crash investigation, the DIG found that the officer's investigation was within CPD policy and procedure. It is recommended that this allegation be closed as unfounded. Our committee reviewed, and we concur with the finding of the IG. The next was 2024-1315, and this was an allegation of misconduct. The complainant alleged that, number one, because I am a black woman, an officer attempted to intimidate me. The DIG's investigation consisted of an interview of the focus officer, review of CAD, and then a review of the body-worn camera of the focus officer. The investigation found no evidence to substantiate that the complainant's allegation that the CPD officer attempted to intimidate her because she was a black woman was an issue. Therefore, it is recommended that this be closed as unfounded. We did review this, and the BWC did not indicate that that was an issue at all, so we concur with the finding of the Inspector General. As to case number 2024-1317, this was an allegation of excessive force. The complainant alleged that an officer stopped her son and used excessive force by placing his hands on him, causing him to injure his hand. The DIG's investigation consisted of CAD material, body-worn camera, and an interview of the officer at issue and CPD policies and procedure. As it pertains to excessive use of force, the investigation found that the officer grabbed one of the complainant's sons, one of her sons, to separate him from the altercation. The officer did not use excessive force on the complainant's son, causing him to injure his hand, as alleged. It is recommended that this allegation be closed as unfounded. We reviewed the material, our committee did, and the body-worn camera did not show that there was, let's see here, that there was any excessive use of force. And there were two sergeants at the scene, and both of them went and spoke with the mother. And they, in fact, the sergeants never even came in contact with the young man's hand, per BWC. Next is case number 2024-1341. Let's see. Allegation is misconduct. The complainant alleged that, number one, there was an appearance of bias and prejudice against him for committing there was an appearance of bias and prejudice conclusion of him committing a crime by the CPD officer because he was black and the officer and the store clerk were white. Also, he claimed he was not allowed to tell his side of the story to the officer. In addition, he alleged the officer did not provide him with a supervisor, which he requested. Providing a supervisor upon request is not required by policy, and therefore, it was not made into an allegation. So we only have one allegation here. And the BWC was reviewed. The investigation consisted of CAD data, BWC, an interview with the pilot, gas station manager, and policies and procedure. The body-worn camera did show that he was allowed to tell his side of the story, and the officers were very polite, and they were very thorough, and this was all on camera. The investigation found no evidence to substantiate the complainant's allegation of bias and prejudgment by CPD officers during this interaction with the complainant. Therefore, there is a recommendation of an unfounded finding for this allegation. Our committee reviewed it, and we agree with the finding of the Inspector General. Case number 2024-1367. This is an allegation of misconduct. The complainant This complaint originated from an interaction between CPD officers who responded to a call for a custody dispute. The complainant alleged that, one, the officers threatened to arrest this complainant if she did not make her kids go with their father. Number two, the officers threatened the complainant's children with the complainant's arrest if they did not go with their father. And 3, the officers lied on the interference with custody report and stated that the complainant refused to return the children to their father. The investigation consisted of an interview with the complainant, interview with the father of the complainant's children, interviews with the responding officers, review of computer-aided dispatch, a review of the BWC footage, and review of CPD policy and procedure. With regard to allegation number 1, that the investigation revealed no evidence to substantiate the allegation made by this complainant. The officers advised the complainant at various times the possible outcomes of not following this custody agreement, and explained that the arrest is an option. It's one of the options, but no explicit or direct threat to arrest were made. The officers maintained that they did not want to arrest this complainant. Therefore, it is recommended that this allegation be closed as unfounded. As to allegation number 2, that they threatened arrest to her kids, the investigation revealed no evidence to substantiate the allegation made by the complainant. The officers explained to the children that the complainant could get in trouble if they did not go with their father, but no explicit or direct threats to arrest were made. Officers maintained that they did not want to arrest the complainant and that they did not want to see the complainant get into trouble. Therefore, it is recommended that this be closed as unfounded. With regard to allegation number 3, the investigation revealed no evidence to substantiate the allegation made by the complainant. Ultimately, the complainant did refuse to return one of the children by the end of the incident, and this is reflected in the incident report. It is recommended that this be closed as unfounded. The officers tried very hard not to even write a report because they knew that if they wrote a report, this report could eventually be used against her. So they tried very hard to get her to follow the orders of the Court of Domestic, to follow the custody order. She did not want to, and eventually they decided to just, she would not return the third child, and finally they just wrote the report and left the third child with her, and the father would have to just pursue it in court. So they followed all procedure, and that's it. And the final one is 2024-1503, and this is an allegation of misconduct by CPD officers. The complaint originated from an interaction between CPD officers, on October 14th of 2024. The officers observed a jaywalking violation and stopped 2 individuals for jaywalking. The complainant alleged, 1, the officer would not provide his name or badge number. 2, the officer asked if she needed a translator even though she was speaking English. And 3, the officers did not issue a ticket for another individual who jaywalked shortly after they were stopped. The investigation consisted of attempts to contact the complainant for an interview, CAD review, and BWC footage review. In regards to allegation number 1, the investigation found no evidence to substantiate this allegation. A review of the body-worn camera revealed the complainant never requested the responding officer's name or badge number, so they were not provided. Therefore, this is recommended to be closed as unfounded. With regard to allegation number 2, the investigation found no evidence to substantiate this allegation. At no point did the officer ask if she needed a translator. Therefore, it is recommended that this be closed as unfounded. As to allegation number 3, the investigation found no evidence to substantiate this allegation. It did not show, the BWC did not show the officers witnessing another individual jaywalking, and therefore no mention is made of another jaywalking incident. So this is also recommended to be closed as unfounded. Our committee reviewed it, and we recommended, and we concur with the findings of the Inspector General. So as to case numbers, 24, 1202, 1233, 1279, 1315, 1317, 1341, 1367, and 1503. We move at this time to accept the findings of the Inspector General. And as to case number, there's one case number.
1233.
Thank you. As to case number 1233, we move to accept the finding that the Inspector General brought as to profanity, the use of profanity by the officer.
Okay, so I'll handle those as two motions. First is all the case numbers that Subcommittee 3 reviewed and recommended. We've got a motion on the floor to accept those as given. May I have a second, please? Second. Okay, all in favor of accepting those cases, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, those motions carry. And now separately, the second motion on case number 1233, which the additional allegation from the IG, which was sustained. May I have a second? Second. Okay, I have a second. All in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? All right, motions carry. Thank you. All right, so now I'm going to go through the reports from Committee 2. And apologies, they will likely not be in the right order. They'll be in the order that I downloaded them. So first up, case number 2024-1330. This complaint arose from misconduct alleged by police officer via hotline using excessive force on her fiance. So this is an incident where CAD, BWC footage were all looked at. It revealed that the complainant's fiance was driving with a suspended license and parked in an apartment complex where there were multiple parties going on outside. When the officers approached him and announced that he was going to be detained, he resisted. Only one officer initially attempted to detain him until the complainant's fiance started to resist, at which time the other officers stepped in to assist. The allegations by the complainant did not occur as alleged, nor did the officer's actions violate CPD policy and procedure. So this report was recommended to be closed as unfounded. Okay, does anyone have any questions about that?
And the subcommittee agreed, right?
No, these are reading the reports in real time because the subcommittee did not meet on these cases. Right now, Mr. Strickland, or for last month, Mr. Strickland was a subcommittee by himself.
Oh, we're making the decision.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yep, no, that's okay. No questions? Okay, thank you. All right, next up is case number 2024-1476. This complaint alleged from an allegation of misconduct by police officers stemming from a traffic accident that the complainant was involved in. And the complainant alleged first that the officers took the side of the other driver because the other driver was white, the complainant is black. Two, the complainant alleged that the officers would not document that the other driver was under the influence of marijuana. And three, the complainant alleged that the officers would not provide the complainant with their name and badge numbers. In addition, the complainant stated that the officers refused to call for a supervisor when asked. However, the officer providing a supervisor upon request is not required by any policy. So the IG investigation consisted of an interview of the complainant, interview of the other driver in the accident, an interview of two focus officers, a review of body-worn camera footage, and a review of applicable Columbus Division of Police directives. The investigation found that officers did not take either side of the side of either drivers during the incident. Additionally, they did not observe any indicators that the other driver was under the influence of marijuana, as the complainant alleged. Lastly, the investigation found the complainant never requested the name or badge numbers for either of the involved officers at the time of the incident. Therefore, the DIG recommends that all 3 allegations be closed with a finding of unfounded. Any questions about that one before I move on? Okay. Next, we have case number 2024-1430. In this complaint, the complainant made a police report stating that her ex-boyfriend, Columbus Division of Police officer, stole her firearm from her residence. The complainant went on to allege that the officer also messes with her television remote by causing it to blink, as well as causing connectivity issues for her cell phone. The complaint was initially investigated by the CPD's Internal Affairs Bureau for possible criminality. No criminality was found, and the complaint was referred to the City of Columbus Department of Inspector General for administrative investigation on September 27, 2024. The IG's investigation consisted of contact attempts to the complainant, an interview of the focus officer, a review of CPD IAB investigation packet related to this case, and a review of applicable CPD division directives. The complainant failed to cooperate with the DIG and CPD's IAB investigations. The complainant never provided any additional statements other than what was in her initial complaint. Additionally, an interview was conducted with the officer where he denied the allegations and explained that he had not had contact with the complainant since 2020. The complainant had made similar complaint against the officer to CPD IAB in 2021, where there was also no evidence to substantiate the complainant's allegations. Therefore, the Columbus DIG recommends that this complaint and the allegations against the officer be closed as unfounded. Any questions there?
Yes, these aren't listed on our agenda, right?
They are on the agenda, so some of them are listed under bullet 3,
Oh,
and some
so,
are under bullet 4.
I see. So they were partly pending and partly assigned.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, trying not to lose track.
That was 1430.
Okay, sorry. 2024-1391. On September 23rd, 2024, the DIG received a complaint alleging misconduct. Here, the allegation was that an officer was rude and acted as if the complainant were a criminal. The complainant alleged that the officer advised him that he could not speak to anyone else after he requested another officer, and that the officer made the complainant walk home after his vehicle was stolen and never offered him a ride. The IG's investigation consisted of CAD data, BWC footage, and review of CPD policies and procedures. In regards to allegation 1, the investigation found no evidence that substantiated the complainant's allegation that the officer was not rude or violated any CPD directives. The officer did not use any language that implicated the complainant as a criminal. Therefore, it's recommended that that allegation be closed as unfounded. Concerning the complainant's other statements about requesting another officer to assist him, and the officer did not give him a ride home after being robbed, these actions by the officer are not a CPD policy violation. Officers assigned to a district are responsible for handling calls, and that officer was the correct person to handle the call for the service in that area. The complainant informed the officer that he was walking home, indicating to the officer that he planned to walk home. It does not look as though the officer refused to give a ride. So it's therefore recommended that those allegations be closed as unfounded as well. Any questions about those? All right, next up, we have 1366, apologies. This was an allegation also from September of 2024. The DIG received a complaint alleging misconduct, specifically that a CPD officer dropped off a female who was seeking treatment at a closed building after hours and left her to find her own way instead of taking her to an emergency department. The IG's investigation include CAD data, BWC, Also footage from fleet interior cameras, security footage from the Ohio State University Harding Hospital, interviews with CPD officers, and a review of CPD policies and procedures. The investigation here found no evidence to substantiate the complainant's allegation that CPD officers dropped off a female seeking treatment at a closed building after hours instead of taking her to the ER. Therefore, this DIG recommends a finding of unfounded for this investigation. In this one, just because the summary doesn't share a whole lot, I'll share a little bit more of the details. There was a phone interview with the complainant, who is a security guard at OSU Harding Hospital. The guard explained that a female who was seeking treatment was dropped off at a closed building after hours and said if someone's being brought in for care, then they need to be brought to the emergency department. He said clearly she was being dropped off at OSU Harding, however, that building was closed. Here it's found the officer said that the young person, or not young person, that the woman was coherent, answering their questions. She said she wanted to see her husband. She never stated to the officers that she was seeking treatment of any kind. What they did was give her a courtesy transport to go see her husband, who was at OSU Harding. The officers who were interviewed said that she did not appear to be in any mental health crisis at the time and appeared to have the ability to take care of herself. And that is also consistent with what the BWC footage shows. So, given all of those things, the IG found the reports to be closed as unfounded. Any questions there? All right, next up is case number 2024-1170. This was filed, the complainant alleging that an officer placed her hand behind her back in an aggressive manner. The IG investigation consisted of BWC, CAD data, a review of applicable CPD policies, a telephone intake interview with the complainant, and an in-person interview with the primary officer having contact with the complainant. In regards to the allegation that the officer placed the complainant's hand behind her back in an aggressive manner, the investigation found no evidence to substantiate this allegation. Therefore, it was recommended that it be closed with a finding of unfounded. It looks like officers had been responding to a call that there was a person with a gun and reporting that a woman had a handgun, and that the handgun had, victim reported being sprayed with mace by the woman and that she had a gun in her house. So officers appeared at the scene, and at the time that the woman was being handcuffed, that is when the allegation was that her hand was placed behind her back aggressively. Anyone have any questions on that one? None? Okay. Next up is 2024-1057. In this case, the complainant alleged that CPD officers ran a background check on him and, second, lit fireworks off on July 3rd, 2024 at 11:30 p.m. The Columbus DIG's investigation consisted of an interview of the complainant, review of CPD's Internal Affairs Bureau investigation, a review of CAD data from Fairfield County Sheriff's Office, interviews with the involved officers, a review of the Ohio Department of Commerce Ohio fireworks law for consumers, and a review of CPD policies and procedures. The investigation found no evidence to substantiate the complainant's allegation that CPD officers ran a background check on him. Therefore, it is recommended that that allegation be closed as unfounded. The investigation also found no evidence that the officers lit fireworks on July 3rd, 2024 at 11:30 p.m. Therefore, it is recommended that that allegation be closed as unfounded as well. The report has a lot of details about the officers indicating and demonstrating that they never used a database to look up the complainant or their information, and that no databases were ever used to look up the complainant. Any questions about that? None? Okay, next up is 2024-0752. This complaint alleged police misconduct. The complainant stated that she received a like on her dating profile page on Facebook by a Columbus Division of Police officer, and that in her review of the like and looking at the CPD officer's dating profile, the complainant alleged that the officer posted a photo that revealed the address, social security number, and the offense of an individual who was stopped by the officer. The DIG's investigation consisted of an interview of the complainant, an interview with the focus officer, a review of CAD data, a review of images posted to the Facebook account, a review of CPD Internal Affairs Bureau investigation, and a review of applicable CPD division directives. Pertaining to allegation 1, the investigation found evidence that the CPD officer posted the address, social security number, and the offense of an individual from a prior traffic stop to his personal Facebook dating account, as alleged by the complainant. Therefore, the Columbus DIG recommends allegation 1 against the officer be closed as sustained. During the course of the investigation, the DIG found that the officer's actions of taking the picture of law enforcement automated data system, or LEADS, National Crime Information Center, NCIC, finding an individual violated CPD policies and procedures. Therefore, the DIG recommends this allegation against the officer be closed as sustained as well. So that is a separate allegation from the DIG alleging additional misconduct for use of LEADS.
Was there an interview of the officer?
I believe, yes. And he did acknowledge that he made the post to his Facebook dating account, showing the person's address, social security number, and offense. Acknowledged that he was familiar also with the directive, that he was in violation by posting that.
His explanation was what?
He did not explain why he did it, but acknowledged that he did it and that he knew it was a violation. Any additional questions? No? Okay. Next up is 2024-1267. This is a case stemming from August of '24, alleging misconduct by a CPD officer, stemming from an incident that occurred at Southeast Mental Health Facility. The complainant alleged that the officer punched him multiple times in the back after he was asked to leave the medical facility. The DIG's investigation consisted of an interview with the complainant, an interview with the focus officer, a review of the Southeast Mental Health Facility security camera footage, and a review of applicable CPD division directives in regards to the complaint. The investigation revealed that the officer did not punch the complainant, and that the officer never used any force on the complainant during the officer's encounter with the complainant. Therefore, the DIG recommends the allegation against the officer be closed with a finding of unfounded. Any questions on that one? Case number 2024-1247, also stemming from August of '24. A complaint was filed alleging misconduct by a CPD officer. This stemmed from a traffic stop where the complainant was cited for not displaying her license plate at the rear of her vehicle. The complainant alleged that the officer was rude and discourteous and believed that the officer spoke to her in a manner she deemed condescending. When the officer brought up the complainant having a commercial driver's license, a CDL, and insinuated that the complainant should know more than the average person during the traffic stop. The DIG's investigation consisted of an interview with the complainant, an interview with the focus officer, a review of the body-worn camera footage, a review of the Ohio Revised Code as it relates to the display of license plates, and a review of applicable CPD division policies. The investigation revealed that the officer did not speak to the complainant in a way that was condescending, and the officer was not rude or discourteous during their interaction. The complainant did not display her license plate on the rear of the vehicle, and the officer discovered the complainant had a CDL during the traffic stop. The officer was asking questions in an attempt to understand why the complainant did not have her license plate properly displayed. But the officer's questions were not rude or discourteous, and were relevant to the traffic stop and not a violation of CPD policies or procedures. Therefore, the IG recommends this allegation be closed as unfounded. Any questions? Okay, case number 2024-1211, also from August of '24, an investigation, a complaint alleging misconduct by a CPD officer. The complainant alleged that the officer pulled him over and was aggressive and threatening towards him. Complaint also alleged that the officer used profanity when dealing with him. The DIG's investigation consisted of an interview with the complainant, an interview with the officer, a review of BWC footage, and CPD policies and procedures. It revealed that the officer did stop the complainant due to tailgating the officer for some distance while driving. The officer explained to the complainant that he should not be tailgating any driver, especially an officer, for any reason. Although the officer had an escalated tone, he did not at any time threaten the complainant during their interaction. As the officer did not violate any CPD policy and procedure, it's recommended this allegation be closed as unfounded. However, as for using profanity when dealing with the complainant, the officer did use profanity when engaged with the complainant. As such, the officer did violate CPD policy and procedures, and it's recommended that that allegation be closed as sustained. Any questions on that one? Okay, 2024-1198, also from August of '24, an allegation of police misconduct. The complainant alleged that the officer responded to her home after she reported her granddaughter's vehicle being struck by another and the driver of the vehicle leaving the scene of the accident in a hit and skip. The complainant said she followed the suspect to her address, and the suspect's wife allowed her to take a photo of their insurance card. The complainant said that after she returned to her residence, an officer arrived and she gave the officer a description of the female suspect, a description of the vehicle the suspect was driving, and the suspect's address. The complainant said the officer then traveled to the suspect's address but did not do his job. The complainant alleged the officer did not give a citation to the other driver, even though she did not have a driver's license, vehicle insurance, and left the scene where the accident occurred. The IG's investigation consisted of a review of CAD data, an interview with the complainant, interview with the focus officer, a review of BWC footage, a review of the information from the Emergency Communications Center, and a review of the Columbus Division of Police Directive traffic crash investigations. Pertaining to the allegation, the investigation found that before the officer responded to the complainant's address for the dispatched run, the complainant had already followed the suspect to her residence, interacted with the suspect and her wife, and retrieved their insurance information. The officer responded to both residences and had the complainant and the suspect's wives complete the exchange of information form. When the officer arrived at the suspect's residence, her wife told him that the suspect was driving the Jeep and she was aware of the accident. The officer did not see the alleged accident, but saw the Jeep that allegedly struck the complainant's granddaughter's vehicle. The officer said he did not see, and because he did not see the accident, had no way to confirm the at-fault driver. But the investigation found the officer followed CPD procedure in his response to the dispatched run, 10-4 auto crash property damage, and found no evidence that substantiated the complainant's allegation that he did not do his job. It's therefore recommended the allegation be closed as unfounded. Any questions on that one? Okay. Case number 2024-1133. This is also from August of '24. It's an allegation of police misconduct. The complainant said that in July of 2024, she was pulled over for a turn signal violation. The officer conducted a pat-down search of her. The complainant alleged that the male officer inappropriately checked underneath her breast area to make sure there was nothing in her bra. The Columbus DIG's investigation consisted of a review of CAD data, CPD, arrest report, a review of case summary report, an interview with the complainant, a review of the BWC footage, a review of information from the Emergency Communications Center, and a review of applicable CPD policies, procedures, and the CPD arrest search and seizure manual. The investigation revealed that after the officer handcuffed and detained the complainant, the officer initiated a pat-down for weapons and placed the complainant in the rear of the police vehicle. While the complainant sat in the police vehicle, the officer told the complainant he was checking for weapons and advised her that he needed to go under her chest area. The officer very quickly completed a sweep with the edge of his hand under the breast area. The investigation found no evidence that substantiated the complainant's allegation that the male officer inappropriately checked underneath her breast while making the pat-down. The investigation found the officer's actions were within CPD policy. It's therefore recommended the allegation be closed as unfounded. Any questions on that one? Okay. Last one. Case number 2024-1471. So this stems from June 2024, an allegation of police misconduct against a CPD officer. This stemmed from an incident that occurred at the officer's home in June of '24. The complainant and the officer are married and were going through a divorce. The complainant alleged the officer woke her up from sleep and demanded money he put back in a bank account. The complainant further explained that the officer then retrieved a baseball bat and threatened to damage property within the home while their children were present. The DIG's investigation consisted of an interview with the complainant, interview with the officer, interview with 2 separate independent witnesses, a review of cell phone footage from the incident, a review of the Grove City Police Department report, and review of applicable CPD policies and directives. It revealed that the officer did wake up the complainant, demand money be put back into a bank account, and proceeded to obtain a baseball bat. The officer then threatened to damage property within the home and then caused damage to the walls within the garage. The incident occurred while the complainant and the officer's children were present, and the children observed the officer with the baseball bat. Franklin County Children's Services were notified of the incident with the baseball bat. Therefore, the DIG recommends the allegation be closed with a finding of sustained. Additionally, throughout the course of Columbus DIG's investigation, the DIG discovered additional potential administrative misconduct from the complaint involving the officer. The complainant filed and was granted a protection order from the original complaint, originating from the incident that occurred on June 12, 2024, involving the officer. When the complainant returned home on June 21st, the complainant found a note taped on her daughter's window in their second-story home that read, "To my 500 boys, yes, green, red, gold, I'm aware of your tactics. I'm prepared to, with countermeasures, call home because I'm not going alone. Semper Fi, 8541. The note was facing out and to be read from someone outside the residence. The note was perceived as a threat to involve CPD personnel, specifically personnel within the Special Weapons and Tactics, or SWAT, unit. The DIG's investigation into the allegation the note left by the officer consisted of an interview with a focus officer, an interview of a lieutenant from SWAT, interviews with the complainant, a review of the SWAT standard operating procedures, a review of the note the officer left on the window, a review of the Grove City Police report, and a review of applicable CPD division directives. The investigation revealed the officer did post the note in the window. Based on the preponderance of the evidence, the officer's inconsistent statements, the investigation found the note the officer posted was directed towards CPD SWAT as a potential threat. The statement to DIG was the officer's statement to DIG was inconsistent with the statement he gave to GCPD. The complainant also refuted the officer's inconsistent statement regarding the intent of the note. Therefore, the Columbus DIG recommends that this allegation be closed with the finding of sustained. Based on the initial contact the complainant had with the DIG, and due to the original nature of the allegation that included a criminal allegation the complainant made against the officer, the case was put on administrative hold due to a separate, unrelated criminal investigation conducted by CPD IAB from June 13th through July 5th of 2024. During the course of IAB's investigation, the IAB did find potential administrative misconduct not related to the original allegation on the officer's division-issued cell phone. It was discovered that the officer's daughter used the officer's division-issued cell phone for correspondence. Additionally, the investigation found a photo with data from law enforcement database on his division-issued cell phone. The Columbus DIG's investigation into the allegations related to the officer's division-issued cell phone consisted of an interview with the focus officer, a review of the officer division-issued cell phone records, and a review of applicable CPD division directives. The investigation revealed that the officer did allow his daughter to use his division-issued cell phone for correspondence, and that the officer did have a photo on his division-issued cell phone from a law enforcement database. Therefore, the DIG recommends that both the allegations regarding the division-issued cell phone be closed with a finding of sustained. Any questions about any of those 3 separate allegations within that report?
I would just want to get some clarity, maybe from one of the attorneys, but is there, if this case involved the officer's threats to their spouse, and is that a DIG matter because it is a violation of, that the officer is behaving in a way that reflects poorly on the public? I mean, what is the administrative breach here compared to it being a criminal matter or a matter for the Internal Affairs Bureau?
I'm happy to go.
Sure. So it sounds like IAB already investigated that particular complaint and determined no criminality, was it? And then sent it to the IG for an administrative investigation. I think to be more specific to your question, there are police directives that cover both on-duty and off-duty behavior from an officer and what is expected of the officers, both on-duty and off-duty. So it doesn't necessarily matter that an officer behaved inappropriately while off-duty if that particular behavior fell within a directive from CPD. And so it would be a case-by-case basis to determine whether or not that particular officer's conduct fell within some sort of policy or procedure that could be investigated by the Department of Inspector General for
So
misconduct.
there would be a directive that would cover this kind of behavior, if the behavior was found to be factually
True.
true. Is that right?
Threats, and we're talking threats to wife?
Yes.
Yeah. It could be.
Right.
And so that would fall then within the DIG's purview.
So the DIG doesn't have purview just for officer conduct while on duty. It's conduct whenever an officer who is a member of the Division of Police is acting in a way that goes against policy and procedure that the division has set forth, which includes both off-duty and on-duty conduct at times.
Yeah, I was just going to speak to the criminality part of it, right? If IAB's already looked at it and has decided,
Oh, no, I was saying, assuming that there was criminality.
yeah.
And if
Would that
there,
also, in this case, they looked at it and found no criminality, but if they had found criminality, would that
yes.
still be, and you're answering yes? Okay,
Yes,
that's
and
all.
so in that particular instance, there would be a hold on the administrative investigation
Right.
until the
Gotcha.
criminal
I
investigation
understand.
was
The
complete.
prosecutor's
I understand
office.
that.
But you can't have both, yeah.
I understand that.
240890, 241330, and 241391 to do.
So 1330 was the first one I read.
Okay.
Let me check. 08. Can you give me your other 2 numbers?
240890 and 241391.
I'm just going back through them to make sure.
We did 1391,
Okay,
We
so
did.
did 1391.
and we did 1330.
And what about, okay, we did 1330?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm just looking for 0890 to make sure I did that one too.
I don't have that listed either.
Okay. That's helpful. I will, apparently I did not have that one downloaded, so I will go back in and pull that, which shouldn't take too long. 0890. Yes, ma'am.
That's the one with the sign. No?
Let me check.
That was the last one. That's with the double allegations.
Yes.
And this was a posted, and that was the one with the posted note. in the
Oh, it's
window.
labeled 1471.
Yeah, that was one that I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't
see.
have 1471,
Yeah, I
but I
didn't
did,
have that.
okay.
Right, so it only was, so it's numbered wrong, it should be
Yeah.
0890.
Yeah, I think it came through, actually, I think RG said something.
And it may be, well, I'm just guessing, is it possible that because these were multiple complaints put together, that one of them was numbered 1471?
1471 is not even an open case.
Okay,
that
so
goes
that's
to you guys,
0890.
so it's 0890.
Okay,
Okay, so then we have
0890.
done them all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, thank you.
No problem, 0890. Okay, I will read these out as, first, it's going to be three separate motions. First motion's going to have all the cases in them with their original complaint findings. Second one will then parse out the other two that had additional. So I have case numbers 24-0890, 24-1133, 24-1198, 24-1211, 24-1247, 24-1267, and 24-1330, along with 24-0752, 24-1057, 24-1170, 24-1366, 24-1391, 24-1430, and case number 24-1476. Having read out all of those, I would entertain a motion to accept those as given with the recommendations given by the IG. Do I have a motion? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. For the second, all in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, ayes have it, thank you. Next, a separate motion for case number 2024-0752. This was the case where the IG made an allegation and then sustained it. Having read the case, I would entertain a motion to accept that one as given.
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second, please? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you, that carries. And last but not least, the two separate allegations that were added to 2024-0890, that was the last case that was read. The subsequent, or the last two allegations were actually added on through the IG's investigation and from an IAB investigation. Those were both closed with findings of sustained. I would entertain a motion to accept those as given. May I have a second? All in favor? All right, ayes have it. Thank you. All right, and with that, we will take a 12-minute recess. We'll be back at 10 till 4.
Other business?
Perfect. My apology for that. Okay, we will return back to our discussion about case number 2024-1434. Where we left it was this discussion between would we like to modify the finding that the IG presented, or would we instead like to modify the recommendation that accompanies the finding? So I'm going to open up the floor and probably encourage folks who haven't said much, if you have a perspective on what you think the potential solution would be for that motion, would be glad to hear it. And in light of law school starting this week and my class starting up tomorrow, I will absolutely cold call people if no one says anything.
Well, let me go ahead and speak so she doesn't call on me.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson.
I think our issue is more so whether to exonerate or to unfounded status. I think making it unfounded with our caveat that this is about the withdrawal, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Withdrawal of the complaint.
And that while this board is not promoting the lack of investigation on withdrawal complaints, we, in this instance, believe that maybe perhaps it could have change the Inspector General's work or review. I just think that I'm not in favor of, if a complaint comes and the person withdraws, that it should stop the process. I think that the Inspector General still, because we had the other case that had the wife withdrawn that complaint, we would still want to move forward with that as well.
And before this further conversation, I'm just going to again add my 2 cents in. Based on what I heard the board talking about, legally, it sounds like the proper thing to do would be to agree with the DIG finding and then recommend no discipline. That's legally what I think the appropriate action should be.
If there was a recommendation to modify the DIG's finding, I would recommend that the DIG not modify her finding, but that the board issue its own finding, right? If it was going to be different from the Department of Inspector General.
So you said that we should do what again?
Again, this is based on me listening to the deliberation, and the deliberation sounded like, well, we agree with what the DIG found, we just feel bad for the officer because he apologized, and we don't think he should necessarily receive any
Well, it's a
discipline.
little stronger and more persuasive than that, but yeah.
Yes, right, exactly, and not to be disrespectful in any way. So if that's the case, then, again, legally, it should be that you agree with the DIG's finding, but recommend no additional discipline, or no discipline. But as Tiara pointed out, if you want to modify the IG's finding, you can do that instead of directing her to modify her finding.
So the motion is to agree with the IG's recommendation and recommend no discipline. That was my motion.
Okay, so we have a new motion on the floor. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, second. So the motion is, just for clarity, we are agreeing with the finding of sustained, but recommending no discipline attached to case number 2024-1434.
Mary had something.
Yes, Board Member Younger.
Well, my 2 cents is that I would agree with the IG. As far as, I would go along with no discipline, I suppose. But as far as the apology, there's just something about that bothers me, that you can perform an act, whether it be a criminal act, it could be running a traffic sign, and then you apologize, and that act is undone somehow. It doesn't have to be a domestic violence, because that's above, but just a traffic violation, and then you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry, officer," and then the officer can, sometimes they do undo them on the street, yeah. But that apology, calling, what you said before, calling an officer or somehow having contact with that officer, and then having the complainant call the IG and saying, "I withdraw that complaint." And I think the IG has the right to do what they want to do, proceed, because a violation, a misconduct or excessive use of force, something has occurred, and it should be followed through, and it is a policy matter.
So to your point, also, when you handle prosecution cases, there's mitigation offered by the defense.
Exactly,
So the other
yeah.
thing that I guess I should mention now that I hear your comment is, you could also recommend that the apology be considered when determining what
Yes,
appropriate
yeah.
discipline would be,
Yeah.
as opposed to recommending no discipline. And that way it would be considered as some sort of mitigation. That's an
Yeah.
option as well if you want to modify.
That's good, because the officer did do something that went above and beyond.
And again, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just providing the options. It's
Yeah.
up to the board to decide.
Yeah, I would disagree with the analogies, but given that the board is where it is, I'm perfectly happy to concede the point, and, we don't have any agreement, with my perspective. Yeah, this is, you all seem to have a much more dark view of human nature than I do, regarding a police officer calling and threatening and all of that. And maybe you have more experience with this than I do. It seemed that it had been resolved, and therefore I was suggesting that it be leased. But yeah. If we if we agreed with the DIG's finding you know, I would still prefer a recommendation of no discipline as opposed to the lighter mitigation of you know, so that was the motion that was on the floor and that we already had a second on.
Yes. So I will go ahead and call a vote on this motion. If board members disagree with a portion of it, we can still count the votes, see how it tallies out. So we've got a motion from Board Member Anderson to agree with the finding, but we are recommending no discipline under case number 2024-1434. We've got the motion, got the second. All in favor of that resolution, please raise your hands. Okay, any opposed? We've got one opposed, no abstentions. All right, motion carries. Thank you all. Now I will entertain, unless anyone has any other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a second? All right, all in favor? Happy New Year.
Well done.
Thanks.